Telling the stories of entrepreneurs and how they overcame the struggles and challenges to get where they are today. This is Believe in the Entrepreneur with Joel Sandoval, CPA.
What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Believe in the Entrepreneur, and I'm super excited because I have the one and only Alex Ocampo in the house, who is a successful entrepreneur, local business owner who started out with just a small little restaurant in 2008, Camino Real. A lot of you know the restaurant, but it has expanded into multiple local businesses. Alex, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us. We're excited about sharing our story that I'm sure a lot of people have the same struggles and ambitions as we've had.
For sure, Alex. So, Alex, for those that don't really know who you are, why don't we take it back to, even before 2008? Because that's actually during the time of, big, recession, and that's when you actually started your business. So what made you even want to start this Camino Real restaurant when we have this huge recession going on?
So thanks for bringing back my PTSD from that time. We had no idea that was going to happen. We had already signed the contract. We were into doing the work, and it was right around April, May when we started seeing the cards falling. We were already in it, so we had to go for it.
Yeah. And so what made you even want to even open a restaurant though? Like, were you born an entrepreneur?
So I don't think people are born like to be an entrepreneur. I think they kind of learn or they see. I think for us, and what's really unique, separate from my story, is I have my cousin Isaac Ocampo owns UPS stores. I have my other cousin Jose Luis Ocampo, real estate, and owns a restaurant and bars. I think just seeing the hard work that our parents put in, day in and day out. They'd go to work, no complaint, just hard work, hard sweat. I think seeing that kind of changed us. We wanted more out of it. And it would be naive of us not to go as hard or 100% as we could, considering the fact that our parents came to this country to provide a better opportunity for us.
Right.
How it wouldn't be justice for us to just sit back and be like, well, I'm good. No, we got to keep working harder.
Yeah. Now, working hard though, you can work hard at a job. But for you, you had a calling, which was to open up a restaurant. So why not work hard at a job as opposed to, hey, you know what? Let me start this restaurant business.
So funny story. I did work hard for other people. And I think sometimes people don't appreciate or, they don't mold people to be a part of the company. They're kind of like, oh, well, you're just an employee. And so I took on the employee mentality. I'm just an employee. I'm going to do my hours and get out. And that's why for me, like with all my employees, if they're about the company, we're going to integrate them and we're going to make them about the company.
100%.
They're going to be part of the growth.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's what actually propelled me to open my own business. It was seeing that advancements in the current companies I was working for weren't there. And I just felt like I had ideas and, I wanted like to help, but they were just like, no. And I was like, okay. So I became an employee and just saved all my thoughts, all my ideas, all the customer feedback, everything the customers had to tell me. I just saved it. I didn't share it with my managers because they didn't care. So I kind of saved all that information and kind of had this database in my head of where I wanted to go with the business. And I think I started telling a lot of my customers, when I was 18, 19, I'm going to open my own business. And thankfully, at the age of 22, I did, with the help of, my mom, my dad, my brothers and sisters. It was a family event and help of our community.
Nice. Congratulations for that. So, obviously, you're basically like a computer at this point because you're grabbing all this data from customers and you're like, all right, I'm going to turn this into this way more successful business because customer feedback is probably one of the best things you can get.
Yeah. 100% listening to the customers is probably the most important part of a business, and you can't make everybody happy.
Right.
You gotta acknowledge that if you try to make everybody happy, you're gonna fail as a business person.
Right.
So you gotta assess the situation and kind of see like, okay, that I'll give that merit. I'm not gonna give that merit.
Right.
Kind of go in the middle and go from there.
Yeah, 100%. Because sometimes, people just complain to complain, and it's not really, like you said, doesn't really have any merit.
Yeah.
But I think if someone has a valid point, makes you kind of think and say, all right, is this something that I need to maybe adjust in my business to improve and get better?
Yes.
So, I mean, so were you in the restaurant business to begin with, like from day one?
So my story starts many, many years ago. No, I'm just kidding. So I think at a young age, I would admire my mom. Like we had a big family, It was our family, then our cousins that came here from Mexico, and we were helping them out, and my mom would cook for them and for us. And I used to just watch her in the kitchen, like, she'd make magic out of potatoes and tomatoes, like, man, like, wow, that's delicious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at a young age, I fell in love with that. And I remember my dad just kicking me out of the kitchen. I'd always try to be in there, just watching, or even when it came to making like something simple like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. For me, it wasn't like that. It was a peanut butter, jelly, Ritz crackers, cornflake sandwich, grilled. And it was like, what was I doing? I don't know. It was before Food Network. So it was just like something that I loved food. I'm a foodie.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for Instagram and Food Network and foodies, because that's actually propelled us to where we're at now. But I think just being in the kitchen, watching my mom, and then I remember falling in love with the cafeteria. I fell in love with the cafeteria lady, Miss B Belt at Lakeside Elementary. Just watching her cook was amazing.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And then that kept growing. And then in high school, this is a good story. I was so excited because I got to work in the student store. So I was a Frito boat master. I was doing these amazing creations like Funyuns and hot Cheetos, and just getting into it. And people are like, "Yeah, it's bomb." And I remember my dad got wind that I was working in food service, and he went to the school and had me kicked out.
Really?
Yeah, because my dad said he's never gonna need this in his life. Like, put him in math class or put him in something that he could learn.
Oh wow!
And little did they know, he put me in study hall where I did nothing. And I came back to it. So food was in something that was a part of me, something that I saw my mom do, and it was just something that I really wanted to fulfill. I wanted to do.
Yeah. Now, was it the actual, like, the cooking part and actually seeing that come into, or is it more like the service? Because actually, in middle school, I had the opportunity to work in the cafeteria as well, but I did it because I love to eat food, not necessarily cook food. And you would get to eat the food for free if you served in the cafeteria. And I remember these warm nachos. I can still taste them today. The spice, like you could see the smoke coming out of the nacho cheese, and I'd be I get to have that for free as much as I wanted. So that's why I worked in it. But for you, was it the taste of the food, or was it actually creating food?
It was a process, like the creating part. And then when I started working in a restaurant, when I was like 17, 18, I fell in love with it. Like, I just genuinely fell in love with the service part. And it was just, for me, it was just beautiful. Like, just being able to be a part of somebody's life, even if it's just for an hour, like just catering to them, making sure they're okay. How was your food? Things like that. Like, for me, it was just, it went above and beyond just a job. It was an experience that I was able to give to my customers, and it just kept growing from there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's super important. Like, for me, I love eating out, and I'll take my wife out to eat all the time, just because it's almost a stress reliever too. Just, you've been working, in the office or whatever, and then you go to a restaurant that has great customer service, and then they're just going above and beyond your expectations and making sure that, you're getting all your needs met, and man, the food tastes good. And I could just imagine being on the other side and providing that service, to the customers. Yeah,
it's crazy. You mentioned like good food, good service, right? When you go to a restaurant or anywhere, you could have okay food and amazing service. You're gonna go back. You could have amazing service and amazing food and okay service. You might go back. Service is so important, and especially nowadays, it doesn't even have to be above and beyond. Honestly, with some people don't even like communicate, don't even talk.
Yeah.
So it's just. I like to mirror my guest.
Yeah.
If you're on your phone and you're looking down at your phone and you're not paying attention to me, like, okay, great, enjoy your meal. And then the people that are engaged, that put the phone down, that do want to hear what you have to say, then those, you mirror that. And it's just a beautiful experience. It's like a you're dancing with the customers every day, and it's for me, it's a high, man, honestly. Like, just being in there and being busy. At the level where I'm at, where I'm responsible for 150 plus employees, I don't really get to experience that anymore.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, I do get to get on the floor and be a part of that.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. And I think that, you know, speaking about managing 150 employees, how were you able to kind of develop yourself into now really a CEO as opposed to working the floor? Because obviously that's a different mindset that you have to have.
It's a really different mindset. It took a lot for me to kind of let go of being so hands-on with the business. But if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have any growth. A lot of the growth it's attributed to our amazing employees. We have like an amazing crew that have given me the opportunity not only to kind of grow as a business person, but for me, more importantly than my growth as a business person is my growth as a father. When you want to talk about what was the spark that made me jump into multiple businesses, 5 years ago, I had one restaurant. So what happened 5 years ago is I became a father to twins. And it just kind of like changed me. You know, like you go, it's funny because this is the conversation I had with Alex, right? This is how we got to this because I recently just had a 1-year-old. Now she's 1 tomorrow, actually.
Oh, okay.
So
Happy early birthday.
Yeah, I have a 5-year-old twins. I have a 3-year-old, and I have a 1-year-old tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And so I was telling Alex, I can't fathom, like I've been at home and I had to be home, so I can only work 8 hours. Like I'm barely getting started at 8 hours.
Yeah.
That's where that conversation was because he right away, he's like, right. I was like, yeah, like how do people do 8 hours?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's great. If you're happy with just 8 hours, that's good. But like for me, like there's so much room for growth and like there's so many opportunities out there. At 8 hours, I'm barely getting started. Like for me, the magic happens at 13, 14, 15, 16 hours.
Yeah.
Where you really start like, you know, just no phone calls, right? When it's late at night, you have no phone calls, no employees calling, no issues. That you're just like driven. Okay, what are we doing? What are we working on? That's what, for me, that's where it happens.
Yeah. So 100% agree with you. And I think as a CEO, it's like one of the most important things we can do is like step away from the business because that's when we get all these, you know, creatives. It's like, oh, what if I do this or what if I do that? Right. And it's because when we're busy, you know, working the day-to-day operations, we don't get that imagination.
Yeah, so I always like to use the example, like did you ever play any sports?
I did.
What sport did you play?
I played baseball.
Okay. So I didn't play baseball, so maybe I can't. But I'll use an example. I play soccer.
Okay.
Okay. And when you're playing soccer, you're focused on the ball, the goal, and who you're going to pass it to, right?
Yeah.
That's what business is like. That's your only focus. It's going to be either your employees, your business, and making payments on the bills, right?
Right.
Sometimes you got to get on the stand. You got to look at the plays. You got to see what's happening. And that's exactly what happens with business. If you get too much into the game, you forget that right on the other side is an opportunity that you've been missing.
Right.
Because you're so focused on what? Your employees, just paying bills and just getting through the day.
Yeah.
So you had to step back.
Yeah, step back 100%. I think I love that analogy because it's almost like having a coach too. And like sometimes I remember the first time I hired a coach and he would point things out that were so obvious. And I'm like, why didn't I see that? And it was because I was so just, like you said, focused on running the business.
You were on first base.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
What was happening. You were just focused on getting on second base.
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't thinking big picture or like sometimes it's like, hey, if you just make this small little tweak, you know, your business will double.
Yeah.
And it takes that outside view, that bird view to kind of see that. So for you, I mean, you said that your twins actually were the biggest impact to actually going into multiple locations. So how did that impact?
Yeah, so for me, like doing Camino Real was obviously something I wanted to do, and I was really passionate about it. And, you know, we were really proud of what being able to do with Camino Real. And without the support of obviously my family, my mom, dad, brothers, sisters, and, you know, my brother Fernando, he's my, like pretty much my CFO. He allows me to get creative and he allows me not to have to worry about the bills. If you ask me what my labor cost and food cost and all that, I have no idea. And I'll tell you why, because when I did have to worry about that, I made that the priority. And when I don't have to worry about that, I make the experience a priority. You know, what cocktails can we make? What drinks can we make? How can we do this better? With those numbers in front, like, you know, they were just like blocking my view because I just kept seeing labor costs, food costs, labor costs, food costs, you know? And when you take that off, it's like, you know, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think we've done much better with that, you know, him being in charge of finances and me just being able to focus on what's important.
Yeah, 100%. I think I actually tell my clients that it's like, hey, you know, you need to focus on what you're good at, right? And whether it's if they're working in construction, or it's like, hey, you focus on whatever it is. If it's flooring, like focus on that, and let me be your CFO. If you can't afford like a full-time one, like let me be your part-time CFO, and take that off your shoulders, and I'll provide, you know, I'll work on the numbers.
Did this just turn into a job interview?
No, but I mean, it's true, because otherwise, like you said, you're not going to be able to work on your creatives.
Yeah, no, you can't, because you're just too focused on everything else. You know, something that I always tell my staff, remember that swimming race, Michael Phelps. Remember when the was it the Brazilian dude was just psyching him out, like just jumping around, doing all this stuff, and even during the race, the Brazilian dude just kept looking over. Where's Michael Phelps at? Where's Michael Phelps? Michael Phelps wasn't looking over at all.
Yeah,
you just focus on what you have to do, and sometimes you have to do that. Like, and for me, like focusing on the creative aspect, on you know, seeing opportunities and kind of just running with it. But I think it's important acknowledging that there is room for growth, and there's room to learn every day. And I always tell people, they're like, oh, you know, I think that's a trick. Just acknowledging that you don't know anything.
Right. That's
how I wake up every day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that allows you to expand on your ideas, right? Knowing it's okay, what else do I not know?
Yeah.
And I think partnering with people that specialize in those particular knowledges that you don't know, that's like you said, like your brother being the CFO of your business, like, hey, you focus on that, I'm going to focus on what I like to do. So, I mean, but again, going back to your twins, you said that influenced you to open multiple locations. So was it like, because for me, like when my daughter was born, I actually like what happened to me when my first daughter was born is like, how can I get this business to run without me? Because I remember when she was born, I was only working, it was only myself and one assistant. And I was working 16 hours a day, but there was no creative because I was doing everything. And I was like, how can I, but my passion was I need to build a team, have employees so that it can one day run without me. And that was always my goal since the very beginning. And like, how can I take myself out of the equation? And then I started developing relationship with customers. So I'm like, they didn't want to work with my employees. They wanted to just work with me, which I was very passionate about, but I'm like, that's not my goal. And so that was what kind of pushed me to grow and expand it. So it's like I started creating departments, started creating different services to make sure like, and then before it's like now new clients, sometimes they don't even know who I am. Like they know of me, but they've never met me in person. And that was what drove me. But for you, your twins are born and then you're like, all right, I'm going to open all these 10 more locations or.
No. So during the process when my wife was pregnant, I had an opportunity with my brother to open a pizza place. It was existing Bakersfield Pizza was the second project. And I remember my brother was like, a pizza place? And I was like, yeah, dude, a pizza place, you know? And he wasn't about it. And I remember like a week later, he was like, you know what? Yeah, let's try it. And so we started doing that. And for me, it was like I acknowledged that Camino Real was something I wanted to do. And I was in the same way like you said, like I needed growth. I needed to kind of like, how can I get my business? And Camino Real has been great for us. It's our number one business. But I felt that our community needed something. And I thought Bakersfield Pizza would be the perfect. And so we did it. And it's been great. Bakersfield Pizza has been amazing for us. And then I think it was a week before my daughters were born. I told myself I didn't want my daughters to be in a position where they felt that they were going to have to be in the restaurant, you know? And so I I ordered a popsicle machine, and I was like, I'm gonna do popsicles for no reason. I was like, I'm gonna make popsicles.
Yeah.
And, I'm gonna grow this little business, and when my daughters come of age, they could do the pop-ups or they could do the farmers markets, and they have a job.
Yeah.
So that's where my mind was at, and I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And then looking back on it, yeah, we've had substantial growth with Paleta Company in the last 5 years.
Nice.
I mean, it's just really neat. So then that was Paleta Company, and then so we did this little cafe at the Auto Mall, which didn't do well because of COVID. But prior to that, we also had a customer of ours who was a revolutionary vegan. Like, he was like, no, you eat meat? Oh man, screw you, you know?
Oh, wow.
And so we kind of began a friendship where he wanted a mentorship. And I was like, yeah, I'll help you out. He had this idea of a business, and we would meet up, and just having dinner there at Camino Real, we kind of got this friendship going. And I saw that he had the spark, and I said, you know what, if you're really interested in doing it, put together this money, and then we'll talk. And so he put the money together. His name was Mal Granada. And we started doing the farmers market for Vida Vegan. So Vida Vegan was born, or it was created, because I listened to my customers. That's how good I listen to my customers. I opened the business with one of them.
Wow.
So there you go. And so then Vida Vegan happened. We were at the farmers market killing it. And then, sometimes I tell people that you can't control your destiny. You could do everything you want. Like, I'm going to open another business, and it's not going to happen. We tried to open multiple businesses around town, and we got turned down, whether it was because they wanted to chain a restaurant or whatever. And lo and behold, right across the street from Camino Real, we find out that the building was available where Vida Vegan's at. And I wasn't expected to open a Vida Vegan so quick, but it just happened. So boom, we moved in there. And next thing we know is, I forgot to put Vida Juicery.
Oh, there we go.
Next thing you know, we one of our employees, Emmanuel, because of COVID, he was doing juices at the market. There was no market, so he needed a job. So we offered him a job, comes in and starts helping us, and then we partner up and we start Vida Juicery. So a separate branch from Vida Vegan. And again, just listening to, in this case, it was an employee. So not only do we listen to our customers and we opened Vida Vegan, we listened to our employee and we opened a juice company. So I can't take credit for everything that's happened. There's I believe in God, and I believe that if you put everything in His hands, He will guide you in the right direction.
Yep.
And I believe that listening and just opening your eyes. Sometimes we're so blinded by what we want, what we want to do. We have to acknowledge that we can't control our destiny. It's allowing to open your eyes and accept the blessings that are around us.
Yeah.
So people want to say, "Oh, you're lucky." Well, I don't know. I don't think there's luck.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of hard work, perseverance, and blessings.
Yeah.
That's just sums up our trajectory where we came. So some people want to sit here and think that I had a business plan, and no, that didn't happen. So let's just go for it. You know? And I think even with Camino Real, it was never about, let's buy a fancy car. Or we could have, but we opted not to. We just put it away. And then I think that's how we had substantial growth, because we had the financial means to open these separate businesses. And now we're just, we're still evolving and growing. We have a bakery. We do Pan Mexicano, donuts and stuff. And then recently we branched off and started doing ice cream separate from Paleta Company.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I don't know. We're just going to keep going. I can't open any more restaurants because my wife told me I couldn't. She said I couldn't, but she didn't say anything about I couldn't partner up with anybody.
There we go. That's awesome. So, I mean, you sound like you're an action taker, because for me, I consider myself almost an analyst, similar to your brother, where like I kind of analyze numbers and think about things before I take action, where you just get an idea and you're like, let's do it.
Dude, I jumped out of the plane in 2008. I jumped out. Like, I had to learn how to fly.
Yeah.
This entrepreneurship is that.
Yeah.
It's taking that plunge. I mean, I took the plunge, and we're still doing it.
Yeah.
But I get it, you know, like you're saying analyst. My brother's like that. He's like, oh, you know, the numbers quarterly. I'm like, what? And that's good, you know. But I think that's how we make a great team,
Right.
like, you know, I'm able to kind of just create. You know what? Mal told me this one day, and he my business partner Vida V, and he was watching me in the kitchen, and he like at the end of the day, he's like, you know what, brother? And I was like, what? He's like, you're not a CEO, you're not an entrepreneur, man. You're a creator. You want to create things, and yeah, in that sense, yes, I want to create jobs. I want to create opportunity. I want to create delicious food, cocktails, ice cream, paletas, whatever for my community.
Yeah.
There's a reason why all my restaurants are in the Southwest. I graduated from Ridgeview. I went to Lakeside. I live on that side of town. So I'm about improving my community within my community. So if I could drive 10 minutes and go to my panaderia or my Mexican restaurant, my pizza place, that's amazing. I'm creating a beautiful community for my daughters and for the future.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, for someone that is, you know, creating opportunities, like, you know, what is your now having 150 employees and you evolving into that role and now having to manage, you know, so many different locations, and how do you, like, what do your daily duties consist of now?
So it's crazy because prior to 5 years ago, you know, I was probably like, I would sleep at the restaurant because I didn't see any sense in me going home. Like, it was like, I'm going to drive home to go to sleep, and then I had to drive back. Like, I didn't want to waste that time. So I would just sleep at the restaurant.
Oh, wow.
And it was that, like, mindset, you know. I gave a lot of my time and my efforts to grow the business, to be in a position where I'm at now. I'm a stay-at-home dad most of the day. I literally just got here from taking care of my daughters.
Nice.
And I think all the foundation that I put forth allows me to do that. And because in my mind, this is where I wanted to be. You know, I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be involved in the day-to-day activities, waking them up, getting them dressed, breakfast, you know, taking them to school, all that. I want to do all that, and I am doing all that. But I'm only allowed to do all that because of my amazing staff and my wife. You know, I'm here talking, but there's so many reasons why I'm here. Quick side note: when we first started Camino Real, because of the housing, right? I actually couldn't afford to pay my employees.
Oh, wow.
I lost my house.
Oh, wow.
My brother lost his house. My wife's check went directly in my hands to try to pay the employees.
Oh, wow.
And she was okay with it. So there's so many people and everybody put in their, you know, their work.
Yeah.
My mom, my dad, my brother, everybody. You know, there was, when we first started, I didn't get paid. My brother didn't get paid. My sister didn't get paid. They were all just, you know, doing a part. That's how they get 100% discount now. I kind of regret someone take advantage of it too much. Yeah, there's just, I think I can't sit here and be like, yeah, I did this. I didn't. There's so many people that were a part of it.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be justice for everybody else that had been a part of it. So many employees that have, you know, gone to do their own thing, and, you know, every once in a while I get to run into them and I tell them thank you. And even now my employees, like, it's not even thank you because, oh, the work you do, it's thank you because you allow me to be a parent. That's more important to me. And I think being responsible for 150 plus employees is it's crazy.
Yeah.
I have 150 employees.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened.
I think it's, you know, just one day at a time. Seems like you just put in the grind, you know, and it just kind of compounded, you know, the compound effect, you know, just stacking your chips together eventually created.
Sure. That sounds smart. I use a compound. That's what the compound effect. Yeah, man, it's a lot of work. And, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this with so many people that have been a part of it. People that loaned us money when we couldn't even pay rent. Shoot, there's so many people that I would love to mention, but I had to write a book.
Oh, wow.
There's just some amazing people that, like, literally let us move into a building with no rent.
Wow.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's just like if people, that's why like I can't take credit for everything we've been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Employees that were like okay with not getting paid.
Oh, wow.
Where we sat down with them and told them like we can't afford to pay you. And to this day I still have one of the employees still with me.
Really?
He went 3 months without pay.
Oh, wow.
Because he said it's okay. We're with you. We understand. That's just amazing.
That is, yeah. And I think that it goes back to, like you said, having the employees bought into the company and what you guys are doing. So how do you build that culture in a restaurant with multiple locations? How do you get employees bought in?
I think a lot of it, me and my brother, Fernando, have been talking about moving forward. We want to make the company an employee-owned business. So we want to give a percentage to our employees because they deserve it, I think what's really important is seeing some of the staff that comes in there and they're reserved, they're quiet, they're not polished, but it's giving them the opportunity. Some of my best staff are the ones that everybody told me, oh, you shouldn't have them here. Like they're slow, or they're some of my best staff. I'm a big fan of building my employees. I don't want somebody that's going to come in there and just be like, oh, I know everything.
Right.
Then I can't train them. I can't mold them.
Right.
And honestly, man, I have some amazing employees at every business, and even some recent hires that they show a lot of potential. And it's so crazy how much an employee can change by just acknowledging them.
Right.
I have like a couple of employees where I sat with them and I told them they're doing an amazing job, keep up the good work, and they're just blossoming into these amazing, amazing employees. And I'm so thankful that other businesses didn't appreciate them. Right. Because then I have the opportunity to kind of grow them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think appreciation is so important because, it's the same thing for me. That's like, if it wasn't for my team, I wouldn't be able to have this podcast because I'd be having to do customer work, but having people in place, in the right seats gives you that freedom. But let's talk about, for you, Alex, because like you said, you didn't really have an education. You just had this dream and you just went all in, and you didn't really know what you were doing. I mean, you were even not able to pay your rent, not able to pay your employees, to now having 150. So like, how did you get the knowledge to grow it to where it is today?
I think it just goes back to what we talked about, just learning every day. Like what are we going to learn today? Having the right people on your side. I think just even looking back, like we did an employee barbecue, like 2 weeks ago on July 3rd. And we had all the employees out, and, we did like a barbecue. We had like a water slide. It was just really fun. And when I made the reservation for the park, I was like, I was deep in thought because the girl was explaining, oh, we have a park out here. And I remembered the park. I was like, you know what? I've been there. The last time I was there was I was like 9 or 10. And I went to my dad's company, business barbecue. And I would have never thought. Like, I was literally sitting there looking at all the employees having fun, everybody just high-fiving and telling me, they're having a good job, saying thank you. I would have never imagined, at 9 that I would be there with my employees.
Yeah.
And most importantly, with my family there too.
Yeah.
Like my mom and dad were there, and it's just, I think it's just humbling.
Yeah.
Honestly. I have no idea how I got from no employees to 150 employees. I don't have a playbook that I could tell people. I think it just goes back to persistence, passion, hard work, and just acknowledging that, when you went into business for yourself, it wasn't automatic like you making money, right? Even though that's what people assume. Like, oh, you have your own business, must be nice. But I don't think people really understand like the struggle or the mental preparedness you have to do this. Or how many friends like you personally, how many friends do you have to cut off?
Right.
Right. How many personal relationships you have to cut off because you have to focus on your business?
Right.
And, and people don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I literally had to cut a lot of people out of my life because I didn't have time.
Mm-hmm.
Because my time was focused on the business growth, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Like, when you have to sacrifice even weekends or sacrifice, things that you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Right now, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so worth it, all the sacrifice.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I think that you have to basically, like you said, focus is one of the biggest things, and being willing to let important things in your life go, because right now the only thing that matters is this opportunity, whatever it is that you're working on, which in your case was your business. But, once you basically, now you've been able to open multiple locations, but one of the things that I think is pretty savvy of you is like being able to manage risk as well, because whenever you start a new business or a new restaurant, you're letting your bank account deplete, right, for this new idea. So how do you manage that risk? Do you go to your brother for advice, or is it you like, hey, you know what, I don't care if it doesn't work out, I just so passionate about this idea, let's do it?
That's pretty much it right there. Like, when you're really passionate, you really believe in something. I mean, how horrible would it be if, because I was scared, I didn't do it? I would have never been here doing this podcast with you.
Right.
I probably wouldn't even be a business owner.
Yeah.
I'd probably be working for a company. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But I think for me, like, my mindset was just very different at a very young age. Like, I wanted more. It's just unique, like the way, you get brought up and you go back and all these different things that your parents would tell you. And it's just crazy. Like, now as a parent, you got to acknowledge that your kids, if they want to do something, support it. Be a part of it. Let's say they want to be a rock star. Okay, well, let's just go to school and learn music.
Yeah. You
got to find ways to direct that energy. And I'm a good example of what happens when your parents are like, no, you have to go to school, you have to do something. I legit was going to be a teacher.
Oh, wow.
And I thought it was, I would have loved it, but then I saw how much my sister got paid, and I was like, no, I don't want to be a teacher. And I think, it's just upbringing has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think and it's funny that especially, our parents who, they encouraged school because they saw that there was, opportunity in school, and they're almost like saying, hey, become a teacher, where it's like, you're like, no, I want this, pursue this business opportunity. And now you understand, like, hey, why, instead of directing them to a certain direction, like, hey, just flourish whatever their passion is, because they can really develop into whatever it is they want to if they really have the resources. Like, if you're going to go to school with some of the best professors or teachers that can educate you on being a rock star, or being coached by an actual rock star, I mean, what are your opportunities of success are extremely high. Yeah,
that's why my wife, I'm going to go to my wife real quick. She is a physician's assistant. And she was an RN. She graduated from the BC program, and she graduated from Stanford with the PA program. And so her accomplishments are amazing. You know what I mean? And it's just really neat because we were dating when we were in high school, and seeing her mindset, like, I wanted to be in the medical field, I want to be a PA, and she did it. So I'm not saying, like, don't go to school, but direct your kids in that right direction. Instead of taking them to Magic Mountain or Disneyland, take them to a campus, a university. Show them that it's attainable. So many times people are like, there's no way I'd be able to go to Stanford. Stanford's a beautiful campus. And just seeing it, it's like, wow, I only saw it in movies. and there I was at Stanford. Yeah. So I when I tell people, if they ask me if I went to university, I say, yeah, I went to Stanford. Twice to visit my wife. There we go. But yeah, we as a new, I see the new generation, because my parents came here to provide a better opportunity for us, right? So do we just like cross our arms and like, all right, good job, mom and dad, you guys did it, we're good? No, we want to continue that.
Right.
And encourage our future generations. Like, what can we teach them, and what can we set them up for?
Right. And I think that's really important because, they're our legacy in a way. But, for you being a stay-at-home dad, now having that, being able to have a business that allows you to do that, at least for me, being at home, with my kids is probably one of the biggest joys that I get. But it also like, in a way, removes my focus from the business because now I'm focusing on them and just that quality time. So how do you still be creative when you're, having to raise kids at home?
Yeah, so when people call me during the day, I first apologize right at the top. I have 4, so you can just imagine.
Oh my God.
And so automatically I'm like, hey, I apologize, and then they're like, oh, it's okay. And so then the conversation continues.
Yeah.
But usually, for me, creativity doesn't start until, I would say, 11 or midnight, when the phone's not ringing, when nobody's calling, when everything's okay.
Yeah.
When everybody's asleep.
Yeah.
I think that's, for me, it's like my time to shine.
Nice.
All right, let's do it. No phone calls. Let's go. What are we going to work on?
Yeah. Now, is the creativity in your mind, or are you like pulling up blenders and pulling up, your cooks, your pots and pans? So
it's funny because sometimes I think of something and I'm like, in my mind, oh, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And it's not. So a lot of it's in my head. Like, I have things and like ideas for recipes or even like ice cream creations. And, I think it's going to be great, but it's not. But in my line of work, it's important to kind of just try different things. It's funny you kind of use the example like I'm a computer, and honestly, I think about like my mom's recipes, and I'll go back to them and I'll be like, she used to make this. And I'm like, hey, let's bring it, but let's give it that little touch, and we switch it up. Like recently we started doing like we call them empanadas at the restaurant, but I grew up calling them quesadillas, where it's maseca with cheese in the middle, and you crimp the edges and you fry it. That was a quesadilla growing up. So this whole flour tortilla with cheese in the middle, I don't know what the heck that was. So we recently put those into the menu at the restaurant. It's queso with rajas de jalapeno. And then I was like, well, let's jazz it up a little bit. So now we cut them open and we stuff them with smoked tri-tip and like a house tamarindo barbecue sauce that we make. And it's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what I do, man. I like combining flavors and kind of creating different experiences for our guests.
Nice. Now, do you make that decision yourself? Like if you taste it and you're like, oh man, this is amazing, and the public's going to love it? Or do you like bounce it off like your friends and see what they think first?
So I've came to acknowledge that it's my job, or from a business perspective, it's your job to educate your customers. So it's my job to educate my customers as well. So it's funny, we'll do a special and we won't sell one, and we just put it away, and we bring it back and it won't sell again, and then we bring it back and sells out.
Oh wow.
So sometimes you got to just kind of train or just kind of inform and educate the community about this dish or what this consists of. They might not like it the first time, but then it comes around the second time, like, hey, you know what? That looks pretty good. So a lot of it is kind of just showcasing it. Social media has been amazing for us. There's no way I'd be able to showcase, a dish to each individual person in the restaurant. I used to do that before social media, because I'd be on the floor. I'd literally go out there and give people samples and be like, hey, try this. Hey, that's pretty good. All right, going on the menu. But yeah, a lot of it's just trial and error, man. Kind of creating stuff, and it's amazing what happens when you listen to your customers and you kind of don't give up on creating. Recently, we took about $1,000 worth of paletas and ice cream to Oakland, and we're in a hotel right there on Oakland on the boulevard next to the convention center. And when I asked the guy, like, how did you hear about me? He was like, oh, I saw some pictures of your stuff on Instagram. And here's the director of the hotel, food and beverage director.
Oh, wow. And
he's like, yeah, I really like what you had going on. You think you could bring a freezer to Oakland?
Oh, wow.
I was like, all right, I'll be there next week. You know, and then even like we have a Carlos at Limon y Sal in Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful restaurant. And through Instagram, he reaches out to me. He's like, hey, you think we could do some paletas for my restaurant? I was like, yeah. So he didn't know that I had Camino Real as well. So once I got over and we started talking, he was like, what? You have that restaurant too? So it's just kind of crazy, like what social media can do for you.
Yeah.
The connections you're able to make.
Yeah, 100%. So even, going back to educating your customers. So like, even though and I think it goes back to like, you could be the best cook, the best accountant, best anything, but if nobody knows who you are or how good your food tastes, it's no one's going to actually buy it, because they just, like you said, you got to showcase it. You got to make sure that people are aware of it, put it on. So even as a restaurant, you still have to advertise and market.
Yeah, like I'm a big fan of smoking like tri-tip. So like I feel like the tri-tip that we do at the restaurant's like really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people would be like, tri-tip in a Mexican restaurant? And I always correct them. I was like, well, there's a thing, though. We're not a Mexican restaurant. We're Mexican inspired with California love.
There we go.
California and tri-tip's pretty, So I think that's something that we coined at a very early phase in our professional career.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to make sure that people understood that we're not a Mexican restaurant. We're Mexican inspired California love. And when people wanted to argue with me about saying like, oh, you're ashamed of your heritage, I'm like, not at all. I'm embracing it. My parents are from Mexico.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in California. So you want to talk about authenticity? I'd be fake if I was telling myself as a traditional Mexican restaurant.
Right.
How traditional are chicken nuggets on the menu?
Right.
How traditional are cheeseburgers on the menu?
Right.
A quesadilla or even a burrito?
Yeah.
I mean, don't come at me, because people always say that, like, oh, you're not authentic. I was like, actually, I might be the most authentic restaurant you've ever been to.
Right.
So.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, again, it just goes back to, it really just knowing who you are as a business too. It's like, kind of what your values are, right? Like you said, Mexican inspired, California love. So it's like, you knew what you were bringing to the community, and it's like, regardless of the feedback, it's like, hey, this is my vision for what I'm building.
Yeah, and we stuck with it, man. It was hard. It was hard at first. I remember when we first opened, we went full on Mexican inspired California love, and then I had to like cut back a little bit, and I had to trick people. Okay, it's Mexican food, and then just go back to it.
Yeah.
So they didn't even see the transition from like chile verde mac and cheese, or wontons and orange chicken burritos, and all this crazy stuff we do at the restaurant. But it's embraced. People love it.
Right.
We stand out. I mean, in so many Mexican restaurants in Bakersfield, and I think that's really important for people that want to go into business for themselves. Are you going to do what everybody else is doing? Or are you going to create your own clientele? Like, why fight over the same group of people?
Right.
So you want to stand out.
Right.
And even though that demographic or that customer base doesn't exist, create it. And nobody could take it away from you.
Right. Yeah, I love that, because it's there's a book called, speaking of not reading the books, but this actually reminds me of a book called The Blue Ocean Strategy, where everyone's fighting in this red ocean, and it's your job to create a blue ocean. And a great example of that they show in the book was actually Cirque du Soleil, where like the circuses before was like clowns and elephants and just, tigers and stuff. And then it was usually at the fair, very dirty and stuff. You could smell all the dirt. But then it's like, hey, why don't we bring some of the clowns, but maybe let's create our own thing. Let's actually make it an experience, and let's serve cocktails and do it in a nice auditorium where it's nice and cool and AC, and we'll have performances. And they created their own audience, and they created their own, and then people started gravitating towards it because they enjoyed the experience. And it's almost like, without you even having to read books, you kind of learn this just through trial and error by saying, hey, you know what, how can I separate myself from the crowd and be different, and make sure that, and based on customer feedback, have people gravitate towards that.
What book was that?
The Blue Ocean Strategy.
I'm going to sue that guy. He took
He took your idea.
I was thinking about like Mexican inspired California love. So the way that came up was they were doing like a write-up on the newspaper. I think it was like the first year we were opened. I knew I wanted to do Mexican food, but with the California touch. And it wasn't until I had this interview with the newspaper, and they called it Mexican fusion, and I was offended by that because I feel like fusion is more like Asian,
Yeah.
you know. And so I remember he kind of stood back. He said, so what do you want me to call it? And I was like, well, what kind of food is it? And I remember telling him, I was like, it's a Mexican inspired. And he's like, okay, so it's Mexican inspired. And I was like, yeah. And with California, and I'm a big Tupac fan, so California love. And then I was like, with the taste of California, and then California love or something like that.
Yeah.
And so when he printed it out on the newspaper, he put that in there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember looking at it, and I remember right away I was like, how can I shorten this? And I was like, Mexican inspired. Got rid of dishes with, and on the newspaper I wrote it, and I was like, Mexican inspired California love. Good. Call the lawyer. Trademark this.
There we go.
And that's what we've been running with that since. And you know, a lot of people didn't understand it, and even now people don't understand it. But it differentiates us from everybody.
Yeah.
Like we're just we want to be true to ourselves.
Yeah.
And to our heritage, and give ode to our our parents' heritage and the recipes that my mom has provided us.
Yeah. So. That's awesome, man. That I think like just the fact that you wanted to separate yourself and you knew what you had to bring to the table and being true to yourself, I think is super important, because it's like, hey, this is my unique offer to the community. And I think people just love it because they can't get it anywhere else. It's like they have to go. It just reminds me of like this, for example, my parents still live in a small little town where I'm from, Watsonville, California. And there's a small little pizza restaurant there called Cassidy's Pizza. And nowhere else in the world, I love pizza. And don't get me wrong, there's other good places to eat pizza, but there's nowhere else that'll taste like that. Like I don't know why. It's like they have their own unique taste. And it's the same thing with yours. It's like you cannot have your recipes anywhere else in the world but at your location. And when you make yourself so different that way, it's like people will travel to come eat at your location. Yeah, man. I have a funny story to tell. So on Instagram, I had this restaurant in Hawaii. Oh, really? Yeah. And this restaurant in Hawaii messages me and was like, hey, I really like those plates. Where did you get them from? And I was like, oh, you get them here. And then just jokingly, I was like, hey, whenever you're passing by Bakersfield, stop on by. Mm-hmm. And they responded, we do. Like, wait, what? And they're like, they told me that they were one of the main reasons they opened a restaurant in Hawaii. Oh, wow. I was blown away by that. Oh, wow. I was like, you're what? And I was like, you serious? They're like, yeah, every year. We always stop there. And so they were one of your customers. And they have a restaurant too. Oh, wow. And they said they like seeing our page and they get inspired by what we do. And it's just kind of neat. I've had restaurant owners come up to me at like when I'm at the store. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, hey, man, you're charging for chips and salsa? I'm like, yeah. How do you do that? I was like, you just charge, man. What do you? They don't tell you nothing. I was like, well, I don't get how Applebee's and everybody else could charge for chips and salsa because we're a Mexican restaurant. You can't. Yeah. Like, nah, man, it's cost. Yeah. And now everybody's like, oh, we got to charge. Yeah, you got to charge. You know, we've been charging for like four years, man. We've had to. It's just waste. Yeah. When you sit down at a table and you're given chips and salsa over and over, and your food gets here, you're not hungry no more. Right. And so we noticed this moment we started charging, it wasn't to make money. Mm-hmm. It was to stop food waste. Mm-hmm. We even have it on our menu. It says in an effort to prevent food waste, please read the menu. Oh, wow. You'd be surprised how many times people order and like, oh, I didn't want sour cream. Like, oh, great. Let me scrape the sour cream off of the nachos that are drizzled. Yeah. It's like, things like that. Yeah. I think that's super important. And I think people just are accustomed to certain ways where, doing things differently. It's almost like foreign. Especially in Bakersfield. Yeah. So I remember actually the first time I went to Florida, and there's a lot of Mexican inspired restaurants. And that was the first time I ever saw that I was being charged for chips and salsa. And I'm actually glad I paid for it because that was probably the best chips and salsa I've ever had. I was like, man, this salsa is like so, like you can see the warmness of the salsa. It's like freshly made. And When you get it for free, it's like cold and stuff. And
Watered
like,
down.
yeah, it's watered down.
Recycled chips.
Yeah. I'm like, man, I wish it's like, I don't mind paying for this at all because this is like the best chips and salsa and I'll get full of it. I don't mind.
Yeah. For me, it was just like, it was waste, man.
Yeah.
We constantly see all these chips and salsa being thrown away, and I kept seeing it, and I was like, you know what? That's a waste of food. And like, we cut those chips. We make those chips daily. We make that salsa daily.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to put a stop to that.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did, because it allowed us to, you know, again, it's customer first, and to be able to provide better service and better atmosphere for our guests.
Yeah, 100%. That's awesome, man. So, what is it that you're excited about, like, going forward, Alex? Because I mean, you pretty much built this business where, you know, you have freedom to basically do what you want, which I think is probably every entrepreneur's goal. At the end of the day, it's not really money, but just having the time to do whatever they want whenever they want. So, but you being a creator that you are, because I think, like, for me, like I said earlier, my goal was always to, like, okay, how can I have this business run without me? Which I'm pretty much there. I really don't even have to come to the office. But as a creator, you always get ideas. And so what is it that you're looking forward to?
I think just seeing where we could go with this in our community. You know, we recently acquired Allstate with 2 offices.
Nice.
My brother Fernando spearheading that. So we just hired an HR person.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing like big things. Like, we have an HR director. Like, what? We're getting legit, man.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really neat seeing like what we're gonna be able to accomplish in the next 10 years.
Nice.
You know, we started May 10th, 2008.
Wow.
And so we've been able to accomplish this much. So we're really excited about what we could do within our community.
Yeah.
You know, being more involved in community projects. We've been doing the 12 Days of Kindness at the end of the year. We donate to 12 different charities. We changed our, you know, we close in Christmas. We close for 2 weeks for all our employees.
Oh, nice.
Just a lot of things that we weren't able to do before, we're starting to be able to do now. And so we're just really excited about what's in store. We have a couple other concepts that we still want to do.
Nice.
We want to try a different restaurant as well. I mean, we got the vegan one, we got the pizza and Camino Real. And I mean, even just the growth with the vegan restaurant, really excited about, you know, because there's only like not one other vegan restaurant in town.
Oh, wow.
There's 2. So, I mean, when you compare how many restaurants there are to how many vegan specific restaurants,
Right.
it's just really neat.
Yeah.
I mean, we opened the vegan restaurant, and it's amazing what happens when you allow yourself to just open your eyes and accept the blessings and listen.
Yeah.
So I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to do next week, but we're going to learn something new every day.
That's awesome, man. I think it goes back to those baby steps, you know, of like one day at a time. And I think you, like you said, you know, it even took you a while to open up multiple locations. And I think it goes back to the saying where it's like most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade. And that's really, you know, you're a true statement to that, because I mean, what you've been able to accomplish in over a decade, it's remarkable, and I congratulate you for your success.
It is crazy, because I think you limit yourself, like mentally and physically. You tell yourself, oh, this is all I could do. But then when you put yourself in a position where you're doing more, you're like, wait a minute, how far can I take this? So we're barely getting started.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how far can we take this? I mean, well, I can't open another restaurant. We told you why. But I mean, it's just unbelievable how much we've grown, as far as like even like just working with my dad, and to where we're at now. Like, I have a gardener. You know, you made it when you have a gardener. You know, it's funny because my dad mentioned this the other day. He asked me, he said it in Spanish, but he said like pretty much how proud I am that I taught you guys how to do yards, and yet none of you guys have a gardener. We used to do yards, man. We did yard work.
Oh, really?
Every day.
Oh, wow.
We were jardineros.
Oh, wow.
Got made fun of at school.
Oh, wow.
You know? And you know, at the time, I remember I've had like a lot of like resentment towards my father. because he didn't allow us to do a lot of things.
Right.
But now I thank him because he allowed me to be the person I am today.
Yeah.
You know, him not letting me go out with my friends and putting me to work. I appreciate that now. I greatly appreciate it.
Yep.
Because he gave me that work ethic. My first paying job was the fields, cotton fields in the summer.
Oh, wow.
I was like 11 or 12. And then my first legit job was my mom was pumping gas. And I went to the car wash, Niagara Car Wash on White Lane in Gosford. It was Niagara before. My mom's pumping gas. I went and I just asked for the manager. And then the manager goes, his name was Macario. And he's like, what do you want? ¿Qué quieres? And I said, trabajo. He's like, okay, empiezas mañana. That was it. That was my interview.
Oh, wow.
I went to work for 2 weeks, and they're like, hey, you never give us your driver's license. I was 12, dude.
Oh, wow. No way.
So I went to my junior high, and I got a work permit, and every summer I was out there working in the car wash.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I remember my first paycheck. I went, and I got real cereal. It wasn't the bag. It wasn't the malto meal. It was like real cereal.
Yeah.
I got real cookies. I got name brand Oreos.
Yeah.
I remember like that for me, that was like, it was amazing. I was able to do that.
Yeah.
So that's all due to my father's upbringing.
Yeah.
And my mother, and they're a big part of who I am today.
Yeah, for sure. Just to piggyback off that, yeah, I think we don't realize how molded we are by our parents, and sometimes we, like you said, we resent them for, especially when we're growing up. Like we don't see why they're doing that, and then later in life we come to appreciate it, and we're very thankful for what they instilled in us without us even knowing.
Yeah, so I was gonna say a story. This happened like a year ago. My dad, he's retired. He worked for Rain for Rent for many years. Retired. So he comes around the restaurant and does like little knickknacks, trims the palm trees, stuff like that. He's a big help. And I think it was like on a Saturday. He calls me and he asked me where I was at. And I said, I'm working. He was like, no, you're not. I'm here at the restaurant. I was like, I have multiple restaurants, but okay. And he goes, well, why don't you come sit down with me? And I was on my way to catering. And I was literally in the kitchen when he was in the bar. He had a bowl of ceviche and a big giant beer. And I told him, I was like, I can't. I'm working. I have to go. And so I loaded everything up and I head out. I remember as I'm driving away, I could see him on the window, eating his ceviche and having a beer. And so I flipped the U and I came back. I called the catering. I said, hey, I'm running late. I had a flat tire. I went inside and I sat down with my dad. And I'm so thankful that I took the time to just sit down with him right then and there. And he says, he goes, out of nowhere, he's like, hey, was it worth it? I was like, was what worth it? And he goes, everything you did. Like all the arguing, all the bickering, all the sleepless nights. I told him, I was like, I didn't know how to answer that. Was it worth it? And I just right away, I knew that I had to answer that. I said, yeah, you're sitting in a restaurant that you were a part of, having ceviche and a big beer. Damn right it was worth it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. To see my dad sitting there enjoying not just the fruits of our labor, his labor, and to see him enjoying the hard work is amazing.
For sure. Yeah, I think once you look back, right, and you look at what you sacrifice and all those late nights, like you're saying, it's at the end of the day, you're so happy you did it. Even though while you're doing it, you probably didn't want to. You're just, you're getting knocked upside down all the time, and eventually you'll see the fruits of your labor, like you said, and you just can't be more grateful. I think when you actually realize it and come to just having gratitude, I think is so important.
Yeah, to gratitude to like my parents, to the community. I don't think I'd ever be able to just share how thankful I am for so many people that, they don't get mentioned, even like our food service reps, our liquor reps, just, these people that go out there and they put in work for us, they make a difference. And it's just like, it's amazing, like what so many individuals can do together and just really put the right foot forward. And it's humbling to be in this position. It's humbling to just be here talking to you.
Yeah.
It's just, if I could have everybody that was a part of it, we'd have to fill up your whole office. There's so many people.
That's awesome,
so
man.
many people. Even like what was it like? I think it was like 3 years ago. I stopped by at the restaurant for lunch, and I looked out there, and there was this big table, like 14 people.
Mm-hmm.
I know these people. And it was like my my bus driver from elementary school,
Oh, wow.
my ESL teacher from first grade,
Really?
my 5th grade teacher, my 6th grade teacher. And I remember they were all there just laughing, and I told them they didn't have to worry about the bill.
Oh, wow.
And they all started arguing with me. They're like, "What do you mean? No, we're going to pay."
Mm-hmm.
I think they were there because somebody had passed away from that they worked with.
Mm.
And I said, nah. And then they didn't want to let me pay. They were arguing with me. And so I sat them all down and I explained myself. And I said, out of all the hundreds of kids that EF has been a part of, hundreds and thousands of kids, how many have the opportunity to do this?
Wow.
They were like, all right.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing because each one of them were a part, my ESL teacher, my bus driver, they're all Mr. Lopez, Miss Lopez, Miss Wickline, Miss Oaks, all these people that were such a big part of our lives. They only had us for like a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I think that's probably the single most amazing thing I've been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
To just tell all these people that were part of my life when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
it's cool, I got you.
Wow.
That was awesome.
Yeah, man. I think that it goes back to, I think what I see in you, and again, just how much appreciation you have for everyone that has supported you along the way, whether it's your parents, your employees. You've had so many people help you throughout this career of yours, and you've never forgotten how everyone has helped you get to where you are. Because again, you can't do it alone, and I think that you still remember the impact and the support that everyone has given you. And I think that's what probably allowed you to grow, is that you've always remained humble, and you've remained, grateful for the support and the opportunities that been presented to you along the way. And I think that's really what's propelled you, because when someone has that mindset, it's like they want to see you succeed. They want to see you have success. They want to support your businesses, whether you start a new one or not. I mean, they're going to have basically their support. And I think that's what's allowed you to get to where you are, which I think is a great lesson for any entrepreneur or business owner. But one other question I have for you, Alex, because I think this is a struggle for many business owners, especially with you having multiple locations, because you've learned how to, partner up with people. Like you said, like, hey, I can't open another restaurant, but my wife didn't say I can't partner up with someone. So how do you find those partnerships? Like, if you're going to open up a new restaurant, obviously you don't have, you have a lot of businesses to run. So how do you create those partnerships, and how do you put people in place so that this business or this, location establishment that you started can run on its own, like right off the bat now?
So I think like there's two parts to it. Like for some of our employees, you could tell when they really put like an effort and acknowledge them. And I like to sit down with them and ask them like, hey, what's your ideal schedule? Where do you see yourself? And so many times as an employer, it's like what you need, what I need, what I want. And it shouldn't be like that. It's what we can do for our employees. And I think that makes them more committed. I have employees where, they don't have childcare in the morning. They're like, I can only work this time. I'm like, hey, cool, I got you. That's your schedule. Oh, my wife is off on these days. All right, I'll fix the schedule for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the people that, pick up the extra shifts, and you see the people that kind of rise to the ranks, and you kind of acknowledge them and you give them the opportunity to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as far as like partnering up with people for a business, what I did with Mao at Vida Vegan was we did farmers markets to see if he was about it. And yeah, he was out there, 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning. We grew Vida Vegan from the ground up without using Camino Real as a, as a gasoline for it. Like, nah, like, this is Vida Vegan. It's on its own. And it wasn't until after we started, opening up, that was like, all right, yeah, it's us.
Nice.
But I think you got to really see if people are willing to meet your expectations, the work ethic that you have. And when they're willing to do that, then you're like, all right, well, let's reward you, or let's put you in a position where you can also do this. I think, like I said, I think as an employer, we kind of forget, I need you to work this schedule. Like, that's fine, but what do the employees want, and what can we do for them?
Right. Yeah, I think that's key. It's like you see the kind of the cream of the crop just rise, right? And within your own team members, and like you said, and just testing things out, right? Like you just tested it out at the farmer's market. Let's see if it's going to work out. And it did. And so it's like, all right, now let's go ahead and let's put some water on it and get it going. So I think that's a great mentality. It's just like finding the right people and then testing it out to see if it's going to work. And if it does, going all in.
Yeah, I think business shouldn't be like, okay, A plus or 1 + 2 = 3. Like, it's not like that, because that could work for 1 week, and the following week, what are you gonna do if it's not working? So you got to be willing to adapt, learn new tricks, learn new ways to do your business, and ever evolving, like a stream of water. If a water sits there for too long, it stagnates. That's what's gonna happen to a business too. If you get comfortable, if you're not running fresh ideas, you're just going to be a puddle of muddy water, and that's it. So you got to be just constantly ideas, adapting concepts, and going from there.
For sure. I love that idea of, making sure that you're always adapting, right? Because like the water, like you said, it's going to just mold and not have any benefit unless you continue to flourish it and you get it to move. And I think that's so key to any business to succeed. Even with COVID, for example, restaurants were hugely affected.
Yeah.
And I could just imagine the amount of pivoting and adjustments that you had to make.
Yeah, that was difficult. Thankfully, again, communication with our staff was really important. We sat down with our staff and we said, okay, who lives with your parents? And they're like, I do. I was all right, cool. We can't give you work. And then we kind of saw who really needed the work. And then we started grilling, outside. We started doing like drive-through taco setup and whatever we had to do, family meals and whatever we had to do we weren't even paying the bills. We were just paying the employees. And then when things started coming back to normal, I think a lot of the employees that weren't working, they saw what we did for the other employees and they were about it. They were willing to do that. They all came back. So I think, like, at the end of the day, we need to put ourselves in the employee's position and not put ourselves in like, oh, well, I'm the owner or whatever. I actually hate being an owner. It's overrated. I actually enjoyed more just being the service aspect of it.
Yeah.
Being involved on the day-to-day activities. I love that. With the growth that we've had, it's difficult, but every chance I get, I'm on the floor talking to our guests, in the kitchen, helping the kitchen. But I think most importantly for me is where I'm at right now in my personal life is just being a father. Yeah. That's most importantly to me.
For sure, man. Like you said, at the end of the day, family, is key. I have, like I said, two daughters myself, and having the time to do that is one of the biggest blessings that you can get from entrepreneurship, and you can't do that without the right team members. Yeah. So and acknowledging your teams and allowing them to grow by creating these new opportunities with new restaurants, and that's awesome, man. Alex, any final words? Any suggestions for any entrepreneurs that want to open, whether it's a restaurant or what would you give me 1 or 2 sentences of what they should have, the advice you would give them if they were starting today?
Just ask me. I'm available. I mean, if there's something I could give back as a contribution to our community or to our, people trying to make a difference or come up, is to ask me the questions. I've sat down with multiple people, and a lot of times people think I'm lying when I tell them how much money you need to start a business. You need a lot of money. So the common misconception is I have 150 or I have $200,000 to open a restaurant. Well, that's cool, but what's going to happen for the first year that you don't have the sales?
Right.
To cover your employee costs, where's that? 200,000 will get you the equipment and the building, and then what? And then you're gonna fail, and then people like me are gonna swoop in on that restaurant.
Yep.
With all your work that you already did. So that's the problem. I think people don't understand. Like, yeah, it requires a lot of effort, a lot of time. It's servitude. I'm willing to do it. I love doing it, but you really can't just have this, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur and make a bunch of money. Like, no, I think you've heard, I don't know if you heard the saying, like you could become a millionaire, if you open a restaurant.
Yeah. If
you started off a billionaire. So there has to be a lot of passion and love.
Right.
You can't go into doing something because in your mind you're gonna make a bunch of money off of it.
Right.
Or I like this one where people say, like, I have a lot of friends. Yeah, that's not not gonna equate a successful business. So,
yeah.
I don't. As far as advice is, yeah, just ask your local entrepreneurs, ask your local business people. There's so many aspiring and so many inspiring people here locally that have done so well for themselves. And it's the Alex from PHP, gave me a shout out. So I think it's only fair that I do it for like one of my close friends, Anselmo Moreno, and he's done amazing. His own company does credit repair, and I met that guy in college, and just seeing where he's at right now is just pretty amazing.
That's awesome, man.
I love cheerleading. I love seeing people do well. And before we started the interview, I was talking about Alex from PHP, and how I saw him when he first started, and to see him where he's at right now, that's amazing. Like, so when he came to the restaurant, and we kind of talk back and forth, and same thing, family first for him. And I mean, how cool is it, even for you to be in the position that you're in, to get to talk to so many people,
right,
that have this amazing story. But I think everybody has a really unique story behind, their upbringing and where we're at. And at the end of the day, we all just want what's best for our community.
Yep.
And our family.
100%.
Yeah.
Man, you dropped some bombs, Alex, and dropped so many golden nuggets.
That's without reading a book.
There it goes. That if you don't necessarily need the education, but you do need the work ethic, you need the sacrifice, you need the determination, the willingness to succeed, and really just being humble and grateful for everything that the opportunities that come arise.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, when I saw that shout out from Alex, I was like, what? Really? That's crazy. Give me a shout out. And then Lonzo, hitting me up. He's like, oh, you got mentioned. I was like, what? And I thought it was really cool. I mean, just thank you for the opportunity to be here and just share, kind of like a small part of what we're doing here in Bakersfield and how we're changing our community.
Awesome, Alex. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and you can reach him at Camino ED, and he has a whole bunch of other Instagram handles, but probably we'll put them on the show notes instead because there's too many to list. Again, congratulations to your success, Alex, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.